So what I'm not hearing you invoke is zombies, which is nice. I guess the standard view is that zombies are conceivable but not possible. My view is that they're not conceivable, but not because of something to do with analytic functionalism, which I think is the normal way to kind of cast that claim out, but rather because, well, more cautiously, what I would say is that there seems to also be conceivable what I have called Shombies, which are physical duplicates of me, which have consciousness just like mine, but are just physical. So it seems to me, and I want to distinguish that from, so I know that Keith Frankich has a similar kind of view called anti-zombies, but I think that Keith and I really disagree because he's an illusionist, and I find that view very puzzling, to put it mildly. So we can't be talking about the same thing, because when he's talking about anti-zombies, he means to be indicating creatures that he would consider illusionists, and they don't have consciousness in the sense that I'm talking about. So those aren't what I want to invoke. I want to invoke real consciousness, in the sense that we've been talking about, and say, look, it's conceivable that that's physical. So that, to me, and by conceivable, what I mean is not imaginable, if that's a pejorative term, but I mean logically coherent. So in the standard kind of Chalmers sense, that there's no obvious contradiction entailed by this claim, or else someone would have pointed it out. Someone would have published this paper, and that paper doesn't exist, and people have been looking for that. And the same is true with zombies. I guess it's really hard, and I've tried hard to try to find the contradiction in zombies, and every time I find something, people say, oh, well, you could conceive of this missing and that there. So I don't know. So it's really hard to actually say what the contradiction of these things in these things are. But certainly one of them has to be contradictory. It seems to me that there has to be a contradiction entailed by either zombies or Shombies. They can't both be ideally conceivable. Maybe that's too beholden to 2D semantics. I don't know, but certainly that's what I'm sympathetic to. So what is your response to the claim that I'm conceiving of a purely physical creature, a minimally physical creature, just physical, but conscious just like me? You would have to say that's not conceivable, it seems to me.
Sure. Just before I answer that, so why do you think zombies are inconceivable? Because you think one of them must be...
Yes.
I see. Do you think conceivability is a bad word? I always think it should be rational coherence.
Yeah, I agree.
You get people just always thinking it means just imagining or something. And yeah, I'm starting to write now. Coherent. Anyway.
No, I know, and there are people who say, you guys are too obsessed with science fiction and watch too many sci-fi channel shows, and so just because it's imaginable, but what's imaginable is actually constrained by what's logically coherent.
Yeah.
So that's the view.
Say to people, no, what we're interested in is coherence. And, so I saw a talk, by Patricia Churchland saying, oh, who cares what's imaginable? Why should that? But if we're talking about coherence, and how else are you supposed to work out what's coherent other than sitting thinking about it? You can't do an experiment to show what's coherent. And so, yeah, I think we should change the word. But yeah, I think we agree on that. Okay, come back to Shombies. So I must confess, it's been on the periphery of my consciousness for a long time to think about Shombies, and I never got around to it. So then the last week, knowing I'm going to talk, I've been thinking, oh, what do I think about this? And it's really hard. And I kind of read what Chalmers says, and I think it doesn't seem very satisfactory. So I think I might have changed my mind a little bit on something, but. Well, I don't know. I mean, I need to think about this some more, but just to interject, I mean, I guess I don't hang it all on the conceivability argument. It's more the sort of transparency stuff we're talking about. But I do want to say that I do actually run in my book a conceivability argument, a zombie style argument in terms of the transparency stuff rather than the two-dimensional stuff, and I think that goes through. But I just think it's sort of surplus to requirements. The kind of core of what's going on is the transparency stuff, and I think the two-dimensional stuff and conceivability is a bit of a distraction from that. But anyway, I digress. So answer your point. So it seems to me, and it relates to this dual carving stuff. So I was thinking of. So I think maybe in a sense Shombies are conceivable, but I think a different. I think of it slightly different how you do. So I was thinking in terms of this dual carving stuff. So the dual carving stuff would be that, pain and C fibers firing, they're both transparent. They give you a complete grasp of the nature of the property, but you can't know that it's the same property, right? So it seems to me, suppose dual carving was all fine, then it seems to me Shombies would be conceivable, at least because you could think of them as kind of a case of dual carving, right? You could think of them as a zombie world where that's true, where they're just really different concepts, but they're identical. Now, I argue against dual carving in the book. I think I have an argument that it's sort of, we lose all kind of constraint in metaphysics if we go down that road. But anyway, then you might think the problem goes away. But then I thought, well, although I reject dual carving, I don't think it's incoherent, right?
Right.
I don't think it's like contradictory. So then I ought to think Shombies, am I pronouncing that right? Shombies are conceivable because dual carving is conceivable, right? Even if it's false, it's still conceivable. So these dual carving Shombies are conceivable, right? So then that's a problem. So then I was thinking, so I think I have to think about this some more, but I think one thing now is, I think, when one embraces, which I do, a kind of connection between conceivability and possibility, what you're embracing is that modality is intelligible, right? That if something's impossible, you can understand why it's impossible. If something's necessary, you can understand why it's necessary. And I think to embrace that involves rejecting dual carving. Because if you've got dual carving, you have these kind of identities that would surprise God. So God creates C fibers firing and goes, oh my, I didn't know that would be pain, Right. And that's like, you've got a necessity that's just completely unintelligible.
But that's only on the, not to cut you off too soon, but that's really a type B physicalism kind of result.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take my views from earlier that, there's this a priori entailment, but it requires having both the concepts, then God's not surprised. He has the right concepts, or she has the right concepts. And so would make the entailment. Maybe the Shombies couldn't or something like that. But what matters is the in-principle nature of the a priori entailment. Not whether you can do it or I can do it, but whether it's in principle.
So I guess I think there is no a priori entailment. Maybe we could go back to argue about that. We've got a disagreement there. There is no a priori entailment. Dual carving is sort of false, and I think it follows from that Shombies are impossible because...
Well, impossible, but not inconceivable.
Yeah, so I think maybe what I want to say, but this is, as you say, you're not talking about this kind of dual carving thing, but I think what I want to say is, maybe in a sense, strictly speaking, they're conceivable because dual carving is conceivable. It's not contradictory. But to embrace a connection between conceivability and possibility is to sort of reject dual carving. So in embracing that, you sort of reject the possibility. So maybe in a sense, strictly speaking, that they're an exception to the conceivability possibility thing. But the anti-dual carving is just a sort of constitutive principle of, I don't know. And once we accept that if their impossibility follows, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
But
I mean, I just would think that there should be more attention to these kinds of issues because the conceivability argument against materialism is well known, but there's an equally good conceivability argument against dualism of any kind.
Sure.
And I think this is the beginning of it, and they both can't be right unless you really reject conceivability and link between it and possibility, which you were sort of hinting at. Maybe this is an exception, which is pretty steep price to pay, I would say.
Absolutely.
Although I'm sympathetic to rejecting it. I'm sympathetic to lots of stuff. So because I don't really know what the hell's going on. I think this stuff is hard. I'm not a true believer, really. I mean, I guess my firmest commitment is just that we don't have good reason for rejecting a lot of these views. But that's something completely different.
Yeah, I guess.
So go ahead. Yeah.
So why go for? I guess your question. I agree. Why go for zombies rather than Shombies?
Yeah.
I guess because I think there is no a priori entailment. They are radically isolated concepts, and they're transparent, and together with dual carving, that kind of rules out Shombies. So I guess maybe strictly speaking, they are conceivable, and you're completely right. That would be a big thing, and I have to think more about that.
Because then it would look like your view and the kind of more traditional brute identity view are on all fours, so to speak, with each other. That because you're admitting that there's more to the realm of conceivability than what's possible, but on the other hand, these guys are claiming that these identities are not intelligible in a sense, and those are both big admissions.
Yeah, I guess I'd want to say it's a very constrained exemption. It's allowed because this anti-dual carving principle is part of what it is to embrace a connection between conceivability and possibility. I don't know whether that works out, but so it still wouldn't allow across the board gaps between conceivability and possibility. But